Okay, excellent. Hi, and welcome everyone. My name is Katie Collins. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior program manager with the Community Health Training Institute and Health Resources in Action. We're very excited for you all to be here today for our training cost-effective tips and tools to support strategic communications. This is a free training offered through the Community Health Training Institute, and it's funded by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and brought to you in partnership between DPH and HRIA. We're really excited for today's content, prepared by some of our colleagues from HRIA, Karen Schoeneman and Diamond Fikes. And today they're going to help us dig into communications planning, communications strategy, help us to think through how to better connect with the audiences that we're hoping to reach. And they're also going to share some free and low cost tools that could change the game for you and me in terms of how we go about our own communication goals and reaching them. At the end of today's training, my colleague Victoria is going to share an evaluation link. Please take 2 to 3 minutes to fill out. It's a very quick survey and it really helps us strengthen our programming and ensure that our future trainings are meeting your needs and interests. So thank you in advance for that feedback, and also for being here today. We do have a live captioner with us, so if you would like to see some captions, look for the CC Show Captions button on the bottom right-hand side of your toolbar. And if you don't see it there, you can click on the More button, the dot 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 button, to add it to your toolbar. Once it's there, click it, and your live captions will show. I believe that's all the housekeeping from me. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Karen and Diamond to get us started.
Great. Thank you very much, Katie. Welcome, everyone. I'm Karen Schoeneman. We are really happy to be here with you today. I am going to suggest we move to the next slide. We would love for you all to share a little bit about yourselves. Diamond and I will introduce ourselves also. So please in the chat, share whatever you'd like, share what you're comfortable with, name, pronouns, your organization, your role, where you are if you want. And then just for a little added bonus, if you'd like, please do share anything that's giving you joy or inspiration today. I think we can all use that. And it always inspires creative energy, I think, as well. So while you all hopefully are doing that, I'm Karen Schoeneman. I am Managing Director of Health Communication here at HRIA. And in my 25 years at HRIA, which I still cannot believe whenever I say it, I have worked across a very large number, quite a large diversity of public health topics, social justice, social change areas. And Diamond and I both tend to work really across our entire organization, and often in partnership with colleagues who may be more focused on things like policy change, for example, or environmental justice, things like this. So we both are bringing quite a lot of experience across a number of different topics. I will turn it over to you for a quick intro, Diamond.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Diamond Fikes. I use the She, Her series, and I'm a communications associate here at HRIA. Just to follow up with what Karen has shared, we definitely work as comms team members. We work across a number of different projects that have different backgrounds, different disciplines, and so we are happy to share what we have learned over our time in working across these projects and just sharing some tools and strategies to help improve or enhance your communication strategies.
And as you were introducing yourself, I'm seeing quite a number of intros come in from folks. It's exciting to see just how much kind of diversity of roles in organizations people are bringing, not to mention some of the fun joys like Annie's white cheddar mac and cheese, for example, or inspiration that vacation is coming for many people as well. And I know we even had some folks register from outside of Massachusetts. So welcome Massachusetts folks, but of course, welcome anyone from really anywhere. We're glad to have you here. And apparently we have at least one cat as well. And I'm hoping that my cat does not make an appearance during this training today. So thank you for sharing. You're welcome to continue sharing. And I am going to pass it over to Diamond to do a little bit. Hi there, to do a little bit of a setup for us today.
Okay. So I am going to go through our learning objectives and agenda for today. So to start off for our objectives, at the end of this training, the hope that you will be able to define your own strategic communication goal or goals, apply the communication planning framework to your organizational needs, apply key tips to strengthen communication efforts, and use appropriate free or cost-efficient tools to support planning and implementation. So for today, we're going to start off with what is strategic communications, and then we'll move into an introduction of our communication planning tool. And then we'll go into setting communication goals for your organizational needs. And then we'll go ahead and move into selecting our audiences. We'll move into identifying and reaching your audiences. And then we'll go into identifying communication objectives. And then we do have some reflection time as well as a break built in for everyone. So don't worry about that. And then when we come back together, we'll move into talking through leveraging channels and activities. And then we'll go into drafting our key messages and the content. And then to wrap up, we'll go over how to measure the success of your goals. And then I think I'm going to now pass it over to Karen.
Okay. I also just want to name a few things that we're going to be kind of how we want to be taking you through things today. As Diamond mentioned, we're going to really take you through the strategic communications planning tool, which hopefully you all found in your email earlier this morning. We are going to take a few minutes with a little bit of musical inspiration it will be one of a couple times that we want to ask you all to reflect. And we'd like everyone to spend a little time after we talk about it, thinking about a communication need or opportunity that you might be experiencing. Keeping that goal in mind, our hope is that you do throughout this session today. We'll review different components of the communication planning tool. And along the way, we are really hoping to offer you some practical tips and cost-efficient tools and so on that might be able to help you go kind of deeper and level up your communications. We know that you're all coming from different organizations and that you have different communication needs that vary over time. So our aim is to kind of offer something for everyone. So maybe not everything in this training is going to be totally applicable for you right now, but we're really trying to kind of emphasize takeaways. What resonates for you? What strategic questions do you want to continue to explore after this training? What tips and tools might you dive deeper into? And then we'll reflect on these questions together at the end. Okay, moving on to why is strategy important in communications? As a communications professional, and sorry, we can go back to the why is strategy important in communications. Thanks. I kind of had to laugh a little bit when I started to see strategic communications all over the place as a term. Because my assumption, as I imagine everyone else thinks, is that all communications should be strategic. But I think it is really important and really valuable to call out the fact that there should be strategy baked into all of your communication efforts. Why is that important? It helps you to think critically about what your overall goal is and what you are actually trying to achieve through objectives that get you to that goal. By being strategic, you're really having to think deeply about your audiences and how you are going to meaningfully connect with them. Being strategic really offers a detailed roadmap for all of your communication activities and materials that you will eventually be creating. And most importantly, it helps you answer the question, is this effort helping us to meet our goal? I think it's really easy for communication resources, particularly your own time and mental and intellectual effort, to be wasted if you are not working toward a strategic goal. So that hopefully helps to set the groundwork for why we are focusing on strategy and strategic planning around communications. I also want to note, we welcome questions throughout the training today. Would encourage you to note anything you might have to ask in the chat. You're also welcome to raise your hand. I have to rely on colleagues to point out maybe some questions. And if we have time, we will be, trying to sprinkle some Q&A throughout. If we don't, we will definitely make sure that we follow up after the training with some responses. So I think we can move on to our next slide, introducing our planning tool. I just mentioned this a couple minutes ago. This should have landed in your email this morning. This is essentially the distilled version of how Diamond and I and all of our colleagues do our work here at HRIA. It might look a little different for every project or every need, but this largely drives our planning and how we work internally with our colleagues, how we work with clients, how we work with partners, and wanted to kind of like put this in a little bit of context for you. First of all, who is this for? The answer is really, it's for anyone who is, you may be supporting or you may be leading communication efforts for your organization, for a particular project, or for a particular program. So this is intended to hopefully serve everyone. Some of you might go deeper, some of you might already be familiar with a lot of this content, but it really is for anyone to be able to pick up and jump into. It's intended to lead you through questions in this step-by-step way that will ultimately help you maximize your communication efforts and resources and support those strategic goals that you're always going to kind of have your eyes on. What doesn't it do? It does not create actual content for you. And that is sometimes easily not necessarily overlooked, but maybe underestimated of a step. And so after going through this planning process, that's when you move into content development. We will talk about content development a bit today. And lastly, like where does this fit in? We are all always doing communications work. I think it's most productive if you spend some time with a tool like this at the beginning of any communication effort. Maybe it's a campaign, maybe it's something you'd actually call a campaign, or maybe it's just kind of a discrete communication effort that's going to, take some resources, for example. That's the best time. However, it's never too late, basically. And you really can jump in at any point in your ongoing communications efforts to use a tool like this to help you think more critically and strategically about how you are spending your resources and potentially make adjustments to your efforts along the way. That's also part of the communications process, is learning along the way and recognizing where there's opportunity for improvement or adjustments. So this tool is going to be our grounding for our next 75 minutes or so. And we will offer some examples along the way, along with tips and tools. So we will move into the first big part of our planning tool, and that is defining your communication goal. I'm handing it over to you, Diamond.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, so we're going to start by having a shared understanding of your organizational program or project goal. And we want to emphasize having a shared understanding. Whenever you are creating content or you are trying to develop graphics or anything on the behalf of your organization, you want to make sure that the people who are involved are all on the same page about the tone and the way that you are trying to frame your messaging, because all those things will work to impact your overall aesthetic, the tone, the way that you convey your message to your audience. So you want to make sure that there is a shared understanding of the actual goal. What are you trying to achieve with your messaging? And so you can move into, as you're going through this process, you can ask, how can communications help us achieve that goal? How can strategies and tools help us achieve this goal? And then you can move into your communication goal can be broad. It can be high level. You can move into tweezing out your specifics once you get into your comms objectives. Once you start to find or define what your actual objectives are, you can start to define your goals a bit more there. And then oftentimes those goals will start with things like build or promote or raise. I'll have some examples to share on the next slide to see how you can kind of put those words in action. But you can say, I want to build trust with my audience, or I want to promote our resources or raise brand awareness. These can be very broad goals that you can later tweeze out the specifics later. So we can move to our next slide. So these are just some examples from some projects that we have here at our organization. So the first is lead and water testing program from the Department of Environmental Protection. So our overall goal was to build a demand for lead testing in schools and child care provider settings. So again, that word build is a very high level goal, it is defined, but it's not too specific. It can be, we can tweeze this out as we move along. And another example is from the MA Substance Use Helpline. Our overall goal is to, again, build awareness and trust in helpline services. Very simple, straightforward goal that can then be broken down into more specific goals. And then we can move on to the next slide. So we are going to move into our first time of reflection here. So we want to take some time for you to just stop and think, what is a communication goal that would support your larger organizational program or project goal? Again, starting with that very general broad goal, thinking of starting with the words build, promote. What is something that you can focus on that would support your larger overall larger overall goal of your org, or a specific program or a project that you are working on? So I believe we will have 3 minutes for you all to reflect on that. I don't know if there will be music playing, but yes, we will have music, and we'll take a few minutes to go ahead and reflect on that question, and then we'll come back. Hopefully folks have gotten a chance to drop some ideas in the chat. I've been looking through, seeing some great goals that you all have shared. So we can bring us back.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, as Diamond just mentioned, I see that quite a number of goals have come in through chat, and I think these are really great goals. Some of these maybe you might even think about taking a step further back. I love seeing engaging youth voice in summer event planning. Building awareness among families of young children about free playgrounds. Increasing awareness of particular services. Very good. Yeah, these are all fantastic goals. We are always happy to, kind of talk a little bit more about your goals. Someone actually already direct messaged me, and that's perfectly fine. So please keep, and I see someone from the hobby. That's wonderful to see you here, Kay. Keep your goal in mind, please. And you also are, of course, welcome to be using the tool, putting it to work right away. That came today. It's a Word document, I believe. It should be pretty easy to work in. So keep that high level communication goal in mind. And we are now going to move into the next step. So you kind of know what you want to do. Some folks have already named. We can go on to the next slide. Some people have already started to name audiences. That's really helpful. You really do need to start thinking about that and maybe even start getting a little more granular, which is what we'll be talking about now. It might feel a little bit out of order, like most of us are kind of used to this linear, you move from goals right into objectives, might feel a little bit out of order, that we're talking about audience before moving into objectives. But we really need to do this because you need to define who your audiences are so that you can define objectives according to each of your audiences. They might actually be different, and frequently they are across different audiences. So we're going to talk first about primary audiences. And the question you can ask yourself here is simply, among what groups am I trying to create change? What kinds of similarities might they share so that you can be appealing to them as a group in the sense that they have some shared values, needs, experiences, wants, and so on. The intention is to identify your audiences narrowly enough so that a similar approach can appeal to that audience and engage them. And this is where I have to make a plug for the general public, which I think many of us as communication, either professionals or folks, who may be dabbling in communication from time to time, a lot of us wear many hats. The general public is not an audience for a particularly strategic effort. That doesn't mean there may be times when we are trying to reach the general public with maybe some of your ongoing communications, just continuing to kind of maintain brand visibility, that kind of thing. But when we are talking about a very strategic kind of goal, you need to get more granular about your audience. If you do need to keep your audience very broad or you have a very large audience, then you might want to consider naming different audiences within that larger audience or segmenting them, which is kind of a whole other almost field onto itself, audience segmentation. But you can segment your audiences by similar characteristics as well. Some of these kinds of characteristics or attributes can be focused on things like demographics. We're all familiar with demographics. That might be age, gender, geographic location, language, ethnicity. There are also psychographics, and this is used quite a lot in the commercial marketing world.
Recording in progress.
Things like beliefs that people hold, values, the kind of lifestyle they might lead, or what interests they might have. And then also for many of you, audiences might be program participants, folks who are participating in a particular service or program. You have clients or perhaps people that you want to engage in a program, which for some of you is indeed what you've kind of named as your overarching goal. And then there are also these very useful audiences to consider. We call them secondary audiences. You can call them whatever you want, but these are essentially the people who might have influence over your primary audience. We're talking about some summer activities here, for example. Kids might have a lot of influence over their parents in making decisions about summer activities, for example. So that's an example of a secondary audience. Community leaders, healthcare providers, family members are often the kinds of people who might help someone they love or someone they serve make a particular decision. And this is the first slide where we've got some tools, tips, and resources for you. If you want to maybe go a little deeper into thinking about your audience, you can start thinking about things like personas. There's a tool here that can help you ask yourself some pretty interesting questions. You can look at things like consumer journeys, how people might come to you or experience your service or your organization. And then we've included a resource here around psychographic segmentation too, if you really want to kind of start digging into these things. And so with that in mind, let's say you've got a good sense of who your primary and secondary audiences are. Now we can start moving into the next slide, please. Communication objectives. And so this is where we start getting even more specific about what kind of impact we want to have with our communication efforts. So this is essentially asking yourself and really making yourself answer the question, what do you want to happen after people engage with your communications, whatever that might look like? And specifically, and this is kind of a mantra for us here at HRIA, ask yourself the question, what do you want each audience to know? What do you want them to believe? And what do you want them to do? These kinds of objectives, really naming them in this way, helps to define a pathway from your bigger project goal to your audience actually engaging in the behavior you might be seeking. The objective is really to break down how you get your audience from point A to point E or F or G. So for example, your audience might need a certain piece of knowledge, like a particular service that your organization offers and how they can access it. You might need to demonstrate why they should believe that service or program would be valuable to them or to their family. And ultimately, this positions your audience to be able to do what you'd like. And so that might be participate in your program, sign up for a particular service. And lastly, we just really want to remind you that as much as you can name objectives that are specific, measurable, and achievable, meaning it's clear what you want people to do as a result of engaging with your communications, that you are going to be able to measure that particular objective and that it's actually realistically achievable for your audience to do, for them, behavior for them to engage in is achievable for them. And we included a really great resource here. I love the Minnesota Department of Health website. They have amazing resources, and there's just a really good section on creating meaningful goals and what's known as SMART objectives. Specific, measurable, and achievable are the first part of SMART in SMART objectives. So we will move on to a couple examples. And the first one, Diamond named this previously, this Department of Environmental Protection program. It's a lead in water testing program. We worked with them a few years ago, and actually continue to work with them, which is really exciting. So the overarching goal was to build demand for this particular program, for a lead testing program that's available to schools and childcare providers across Massachusetts. A couple specific objectives. This is not exhaustive. It's not all of the objectives, but specific objectives focused on a particular audience is that childcare providers will, first of all, know how lead in water sources can harm children. That is a key piece of knowledge for them to understand, particularly when we then move into the next objective, which is that childcare providers will believe that using this program, testing the water in their facility, is an important way to take care of the families they serve. And I believe we have another example back to the Massachusetts Helpline and Diamond.
Thanks, Karen. So our next example that we're going to move into is a mini social media holiday campaign that we actually ran recently on the Massachusetts Helpline social media. So shameless plug, if you follow us at the MA Helpline, we are on Facebook and Instagram. So going into designing that mini holiday campaign, our overall goal was we wanted to promote resources and tips for people in recovery and those who support them. We recognize that the holidays could be specifically a difficult time for some people, especially those who may be in recovery or those who are supporting loved ones in recovery. And so we wanted to create a campaign that was inclusive of both those who are in recovery themselves and their loved ones, or those who may be supporting them. And so something that we wanted our audience to know through this campaign is that the MA Helpline is reliable and that we offer resources that are of value of both to people who are in recovery and those who may be supporting them. We offer resources directly and for people who may be seeking treatment or recovery. And we also offer resources that help support people who may be supporting their loved one who may be going through recovery. So we wanted people to know that not only do we provide reliable resources, but that we can provide something that is of value. So that was something that we wanted our audience to know. The second thing is that we wanted people to believe that it is important to take care of themselves and their loved ones during the holiday season. Recovery can be a very personal thing to navigate. And so sometimes people may not know how to show up sometimes for themselves or for others, but we want people to know that it is a priority to take care of yourself or to be able to show up for others where you can, especially during a time where it may be especially difficult for some folks. So we wanted to really put those two messages out there, and we had to achieve that through the goal of promoting those resources for both people in recovery and those who support them.
Thanks for walking through that example, Diamonds. That was a really fun campaign to see come to light, come to life over the holidays. So we are now going to, now that you're armed with your communication objectives, we are going to move into the part that I really kind of enjoy nerding out on, which is appealing to your audience. This is where you really think about meeting your audience where they're at. And when I'm saying that, I'm really speaking figuratively. There are, of course, times in which you have to think about where people physically are. We'll get a little bit more into that, especially as we talk about channels. But right now, this is like, where are people in terms of their mindset, their readiness? And yeah, just how ready might they be to hear your messages and perhaps start to kind of embody them and then act on them. So these are some key questions. These also are in the planning tool. They are somewhat motivated or inspired by social marketing principles as well. I'm not going to get into that, but that is just to say that there is some really valuable kinds of approaches and principles that we can take from marketing and be applying to social change and public health work. So the first question is, what are the barriers or competition your audience might face in engaging in the behavior that you want them to engage them? What makes it difficult for them to engage in the behaviors you're promoting? And to kind of maybe change your own mindset a little bit, what might people have to give up? Or what is maybe even a price they're going to have to pay? And it might be financial, might be money, or it might be a different kind of price to engage in that behavior. These might be things like logistical barriers, juggling family responsibilities, for example, or other like transportation related barriers. They could be digital barriers, particularly if you're asking people to engage some way digitally. And you could also be competing. This is getting back into this concept of competition for things like people's mind share, people's time, or even how they perceive themselves. For example, is what you're asking people to do, is it actually cool for them to do that? These are things that at times we really need to be thinking about. The next question is, what are you promising or offering people that really matters to them? Is this worth what they might have to give up, like time or effort, or maybe even experiencing some fear or some worry? Some of us are coming from public health departments, for example. We might like people to engage in different cancer screenings. Well, we're asking people to, take on maybe a little bit of an emotional burden by doing something like that, in addition to all of the other barriers that they might face. But you might be able to offer things like peace of mind, like the feeling of being able to be part of a group or a community, or other kinds of important knowledge that they're going to be able to act on. And the last question is about what we just kind of call opportunities or openings. Might you be able to find people in a certain place or at a certain time that's really relevant to your efforts? This might be seasonal, it might be a transition like back to school time, or maybe it's a popular cultural event that is relevant to what you're asking people to do. You can think about when and how people might make decisions and or be in the right place at the right time to do a particular behavior. And you can think about how you can reach and influence them at that point. And one of the things that I was thinking about was when we're all at the RMV getting our driver's licenses, that's a really great time. And it's taken advantage of in terms of like getting people to register to vote. Being an organ donor. So those are just some examples of just really opportune times or openings you can take advantage of. And then you can just ask yourself, how else might I be able to facilitate my audience engaging in the desired behavior, in the behavior I'd like them to engage in? So we are going to take 5 minutes. We are moving quickly here. We're halfway through. We're going to take 5 minutes. And this will be kind of a combination break and reflection. And we would like you to ponder those questions, and maybe we can bring back the previous slide for that. Think about, prompted by those questions, think about what might be 1 or 2 ways you can appeal to your audience. How might you answer these questions? And what are you learning about your audience in doing that? And how might you apply that as you think about how you can really reach your audience? So we will take 5 minutes for a break and reflection. Encourage you to get up, get a drink, get food, walk around, whatever just kind of keeps your blood moving and your creative juices flowing.
I see during the break and reflection time, we've had some more great reflections shared in the chat about ways that you are thinking about appealing to your audience. So feel free that as the ideas come to you to continue to share them in the chat. Sure, we can share ideas and bounce ideas off of one another on how we can appeal to our audiences. So we can move into the next slide, please. So we're going to move into a share back to our reflection question. And in the chat, if you could share what's one example of how you can address barriers, a promise, a benefit, or leverage an opportunity. We've been talking about appealing to our audiences, but how can we help them address any barriers that we expect or believe that they could be experiencing? What is a benefit that we can promise to them for engaging in the behavior or whatever we are asking them to do? Or how can we leverage an opportunity to engage with our audience? So we can feel free to take some time to begin sharing that in the chat as well as we continue to move through the training. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so as you all are dropping ideas in the chat, we're going to move into talking through, really thinking through developing our key messages. So we want to start with a good rule of thumb is to stick to 3 to 4 key messages that really makes it manageable or digestible for your audience to understand what exactly you are asking of them and how they can do it. If you are promoting a particular health behavior that you are asking folks to engage in, you want to make sure that you are clear in your key messaging on what you are asking them to do, and you want to be able to provide a clear course of action for them to follow. And you want to make sure that you are consistent in your messaging. So it's good to have it really boil down to 3 to 4 solid key messages that you can always return to. You want to make sure that you keep your key messages in your communications focused to create consistency across your channels, which we will get into channels, activities, and content. Again, having those 3 to 4 solid key messages really helps to create that consistency. If you are continuously sharing the same message or sharing information or content that is all along the same lines, it creates not only a sense of being reliable and dependable to your audience, but they are able to return to know that you are trusted as a resource in that particular area. And so you want to continue to create consistency in sharing those key messages in a digestible way and also a way that is recognizable to your audience. Having a brand or an aesthetic to really follow or to accompany your content is also a good way to create consistency and being able to build that brand awareness as well. And then, to follow, accompany your key messages, you want to have support statements, right? You want to be able to prove to people why they should be believing your key messages. Why should they be following what you are asking them to do? This is really how you prove that your key messages are true. This is really how you are proving your worth or building that trust with your audience. So you want to make sure that you have support statements that follow your key message, which I'll have an example of what that looks like. But you want to make sure that you have those support statements to accompany your key messages to prove that they actually are true. And lastly, key messages and support statements make your work easier from here. They are the foundation or a copy deck or for the language that you'll use across your communication. Earlier, when we mentioned aesthetic and the sort of brand, voice, and tone, you want to be able to really build and establish that and carry that throughout your content to not only build a reliable or build a certain amount of trust with your audience, but to make your brand voice strong and to make your again to make yourself recognizable. And so you kind of have a word bank for a established yeah, kind of like a bank or arsenal of content that you can kind of pull from and that you can continue to evolve. And so that as your audience evolves and maybe the services that you offer evolves, you can kind of always return to those foundational messages that are really at the core of your communication goals. So we can move into the next slide. So we're going to go over a key message example from the MA helpline. Again, plug for our social media. You can follow us. If you haven't noticed already, I do manage that. So shameless plug for that. But we have the MA helpline. So we have a couple key messages from the MA helpline as well as the support statements. So a key message will be the MA helpline provides judgment-free support and services, right? That is a key message that we convey that you can see throughout our content, our website, our social media, that our materials that we pass out. That is something that we really emphasize to our audience because we want folks to know that when they call us, when they contact us, that they are talking to someone who is not going to judge them and they are going to provide them the best possible resources. And so how we prove to people that they won't be judged when they contact our helpline is that we have made it so that our helpline specialists have lived experience with substance use in one way or another. They have had some experience with substance use, so they really know what it's like to be in that caller's shoes or whoever they are interacting with. So that is one way that we could really prove to our audience that we are providing those judgment-free a judgment-free environment. A second key message that we often share is that we are here for you and that you can reach out in a way that is comfortable for you. The MA helpline operates and is active 24/7, even on holidays. You can call, text, or chat us, and you can get in contact with a helpline specialist. That is a service or a feature of our service that we make very well known. Wherever there is our contact information, we are sure to make sure that we communicate that you can reach us 24/7. So when we tell people you can reach us at any time, there is no specific time that we need to specify. There is no off days or times. There's no shutdown. We are always active, and we make sure that people know that, and they know that all of the ways that you can reach us are always active. And so we often promote that as well on our channels. And so the last key message that we share is there is help available no matter where you're at on your journey. When people contact the helpline, they get a menu of options based on the criteria that they provide to us. They tell us their needs, and we provide services or resources that match their needs. So you have an option about what you are provided. So it could be a range of things. If you are maybe not ready to go straight into recovery, maybe you are looking for more like harm reduction services. Maybe you're looking to get naloxone or testing kits, things like that. You can engage in harm reduction services. If you're looking for MAT, if you're looking for recovery support. So we really communicate to people that we offer a variety of services, that we are not just a direct only, we only provide this one set services. We let people know that there is a variety of services available, and we list those out. And people are able to also search on our website for themselves to see what services are available as well. So, and we can move into our next slide. Okay, so now we are going to move into talking about identifying channels and activities. And so I guess we can start by first identifying what actually is a channel. In this sense, a channel would be like a website, email, social media platforms, any way that you are any medium that you are using to reach out to your audience. And an activity is what you do on or on those particular platforms or through those channels. And so meeting your audience where they are at, literally, where is your audience? And so the first question you can ask is, how does your audience prefer to consume information? Are you noticing that if you post on Facebook, you get a good amount of engagement? Or are you noticing that when you put out a link to subscribe to a newsletter that you got a lot of folks signing up in the first couple of weeks? How are people preferring to consume their information? Are they, do you find that print materials go really quickly and people are ordering business cards or flyers from you? How are people preferring to consume that your information? And then you can move into thinking about what existing communication channels can you leverage? What do you have that's active already that you can sort of remix, or that you can do something new with to maybe give yourself a chance to reach a new audience, or to present something new and exciting to your audience to kind of catch their attention. And then even with that, even with exploring existing channels, you might find that there are new channels that may help you better reach your audience. If you have strictly been on social media, maybe you do explore email blasts or a quarterly newsletter as a way to promote some materials or information. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you have been engaging more through print and email with your audience, and maybe you want to switch over to social media to see if you can reach a different population or a different part of your audience. You can find those different channels that may open up opportunities for you to grow your audience. And then at the end of it, though, you want to make sure that there is a clear messenger and who would be trusted by and relevant to your audience, right? Is there a clear, trusted, reliable source that you are using to disseminate the information? And is it the way that you are doing it, is it trusted and is it relevant to your audience? If you know that maybe your audience wouldn't be on Twitter, for example, is that really the best platform or channel for you to use to promote your content or information? So really evaluating, where is the messenger and is it trusted? Is it relevant to your audience? And we can move on to the next slide. So now we can dive into really identifying some more channels and activities. So some examples of channels would be websites, your org's website, a particular web page that's dedicated to a project or a program that you are running. Again, social media accounts that are for maybe the org as a whole, or they could be specific to a project or a program. Again, social media could be Facebook, Instagram, Again, review what is allowed at your organization and what policies that are active around social media for your organization. But there are multiple platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, email. You can use email blasts, or you can do sort of a email newsletter where people get quarterly or monthly, however you want to do your newsletters. You could do local or topic-based podcasts. And community meetings. This is moving more into like those in-person things, but this could also be virtual. There could be monthly meetings where you host kind of like town hall sessions to engage with folks. Maybe you host bi-weekly meetings. There could be different ways that you can engage with folks that way. And then you can move into event-based outreach and other community engagement events. You can do coverage in local media. There are, if you find what local like news sources or media outlets exist in your community, they're a great partner to have to put some signage or to put some ads in. You can do paid advertisements. This can be both in the paper, this could be print, this could be on the bus station, this could be on social media. This could be basically anywhere where you could put an advertisement where you could purchase a space. People will allow you to put your ads, but you want to make sure that obviously it is in a relevant place and it is in where you know that you will make contact with your target audience. And then lastly, you can do engagement at physical sites such as health and community centers, finding out what local events are going on, if there are any facilities that would be interested in partnering with you and maybe even letting you table at the facility. There are many ways to engage with to reach your audience and to engage with your community. We also have a few tips and resources on the side here for you to check out. There is Hootsuite, which is a social media management tool. It is low cost. You can plan out your content and schedule it to post. It will automatically post once you put in the date and time that you would like for it to be released. MailChimp is a great resource if you are doing newsletter management. It is low cost, and that is a great resource also to get insight on your audience. They have a great data analytic feature. And also QR codes allow people to be able to quickly scan one little code and your website can pop up, your social media is accessible. So QR codes are really a great trick or tip to get people to kind of passively engage with your content. And then there's a media relations toolkit for health departments. That is a free resource that you can check out as well. And I believe we can move on to the next slide. And I will turn it back over to Karen.
Alrighty. Thank you for taking us through many, many channels and activities there, Diamond. And now we're gonna talk a little bit more about, okay, so you know your channels, you know like how you want to engage people. Now, what are you going to do to actually get their attention? What kinds of content are you going to work up? And having been in this space for many years, I can say that a long time ago, the word content or the concept of content practically did not exist. And so sometimes our colleagues thought like, okay, well, now we've got a plan. Great, now do it. And there was not always recognition of the time and the effort and the resources that might, and the creativity that might be required in actually creating content. But now it seems like the entire world knows what content is. This is how you are basically going to package your messaging so that it is engaging and compelling. And ultimately, and I will keep on harping on this, so it ultimately facilitates the behaviors you want people to engage in. These are the promotional materials and all different sorts of content that support the channels and activities that you've outlined, that actually give people engaging content on social media, or that will actually engage people at an in-person event, for example. This is also, personally, I love this part of the process. It requires creativity, real creative thinking, strategic thinking, and giving yourself the space to do that. It requires often some good writing or copywriting skills, and also production skills. A lot of people are creating their own content these days. We're doing more and more of that internally, in kind of, leaner DIY sorts of ways. And so the more you're able to also build production skills, the better off you're going to be, and the more effectively you're going to reach your audience. And last, just want to always make sure that this it's just kind of a tip, but it's actually really important. Almost every piece of communication content that you develop should have a call to action. This is a simple, actionable, and very concrete step that a member of your audience can take. Again, that facilitates the behavior that you seek. So it might not be asking them to, do the big thing, like go get your, colorectal screening, for example, but it might be call this phone number today to schedule your appointment. So it has to be simple and it has to be actionable. On the right here, we've just got some examples. This is practically, like, there are endless examples of content, but things like short form video, very, very popular across many social media platforms, and probably will continue to be. You can think about blog posts or other kinds of content for your website. Memes and infographics can be really good content for, certainly for social media, maybe infographics for print material. And you can start getting creative, thinking about things that maybe are even more approaching artwork, but that still ultimately help support the message that you're trying to send, and the objective that you are trying to meet. So we're going to quickly share a few, oh, no, sorry, we're not moving into examples yet. Here are some tools and resources. There are so many things. Let's move on to the next. Here we go. Okay. There are so many tools and resources we could share here. And I'm not going to say that it's not exhaustive, it's not definitive, but there's some really good stuff here that I suggest, if it feels like it could be right for you, it could be right for your audience, I suggest you look into. We have broken it down largely between written content tools and more visual content development tools that support that. There is a really great language editor if you've got some complex concepts, or you're just not a plain language writer. The Hemingway editor can be really helpful. Many of us have used storytelling and stories in our work one way or another. This is a really great resource that might support you in how you're thinking about bringing storytelling into your communication efforts. I had to name an AI tool that is going to be coming soon. It's not out yet, but we're trying to be responsible in AI tools that we might be sharing and promoting here. This is one that we feel really, really good about, and the Public Health Communications Collaborative, who we work closely with, is going to be releasing this in the summer. There are some suggestions here about visual content tools you might be able to use. Everyone's probably heard of Canva at this point, and you might realize Canva also is powered by quite a lot of AI. So it's an AI tool. as well. And it can help you generate new content in addition to just being a really great platform for kind of doing your own design. We do suggest that you think about stock photography. It is wonderful when you can use compelling pictures, photos of real people who you might work with or who you might serve. But there's some really good stock photography out there. And actually, it's not just photography. You can use, you can go to a site like iStockPhoto for a pretty inexpensive, like monthly fee, and you have access to, in addition to photos, you have access to illustrations, icons, video stock, and so on. It can really be actually a very cost-effective resource. We also name here that there are great ways that you can just kind of like up your game when it comes to videography using your cell phone. And so some fairly inexpensive tools can actually really increase the production quality of your work. You don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to create a really nice, to have really nice photos, to have really nice videography. We suggest also some additional tools like tripods or a gimbal that kind of holds your camera steady, or even inexpensive microphones that are just, the audio quality is so much better than trying to just use your phone. Also named a resource that kind of outlines multiple AI tools you can use for graphic design. Comes with so many caveats about AI, responsible use, ethical use of AI, but it's certainly something for you to be exploring and thinking about. And then lastly, shared also a webinar called Communications on a Budget with our friends over at the Public Health Communications Collaborative. So hopefully these are good things that you can come back to, and Diamond and I are going to talk for a few minutes about a couple specific examples, demonstrating some of the kinds of content that we have developed. We've taken you through these examples throughout this training. We talked about goals, we talked about objectives. This is the lead water testing program that we had talked about. Ultimately, and this was not a terribly expensive campaign, we actually created a new brand for the state. That was part of their issue. They did not have a consistent brand, nor was it necessarily emotionally compelling or engaging. So we worked with them to create a new brand. We created some print outreach materials, which of course could also be shared, digitally over email, through social media, and so on. We created some social media imagery and posts. And then we created this kind of engagement effort, so that when a facility used the water testing program, the individual could get a certificate for their facility, and they could get this seal of approval that they could show, they could display on, their front door, for example. And to talk for just a moment about channels, we engaged community partners to actually do the dissemination. We knew that trusted community partners were going to be really good messengers. We had a very small mini grants program. This was kind of a pilot effort. And also the Department of Environmental Protection has since been really incorporating this brand across all of their related materials. So it's creating recognition in addition to being visually engaging and hopefully emotionally compelling as well. And then I will hand it over to Diamond to talk more about the Massachusetts Helpline.
All right. So as I believe I mentioned earlier, we did a mini social media campaign for the Massachusetts Helpline this past holiday season. and it was a holiday themed campaign that we really wanted to focus on people in recovery or treatment and their loved ones. And so this was a project or a campaign that we put together in a very short amount of time. And it was actually very fun to do. But what we ended up doing is we actually uh, got to repurpose some of the photos that we used from a previous campaign. We worked with a designer to sort of repurpose those photos to give it more of a holiday theme. These are actual people from a real campaign that we did for the MA Helpline, and we just repurposed the photos, and it actually made new graphics or infographics with those photos. We wrote all new content and put together this campaign. And so what we actually used instead of paid advertisement is we did boosted posts on Instagram, which is a tool or feature on through the Meta Business Suite that you can use both on Facebook and Instagram. And we just set a dollar amount that we were willing to spend to pay to boost the posts. And we scheduled everything through the Meta Business Suite. So everything was handled internally. And we were able to garner thousands of views and impressions over a 5 to 6 day span. I want to say we got over combined over 20,000 views on our content. And so these are some of the images that we posted. And we did this all internally. And it was a very quick turnaround, but we were able to reach a very lofty but achievable goal of just increasing the impressions and engagement and the overall reach of our content, especially during a certain period, which was the holidays for us. I believe we did this through Christmas through New Year's. So during that given time, we really wanted to make sure that we were promoting our services and reaching as many people in our target audience as possible. And using the boosted post feature through the Meta Business Suite allowed us to do that. Again, we were able to set a dollar amount that we were willing to spend on the actual posts themselves. So once that amount was met, then the posts were no longer boosted, but we were able to get thousands of views, which is a very effective way to kind of get your content out there to expand the audience or the reach without spending too much or investing too much into the ads. So we can go to the next slide. I believe. Okay. So we are going to move into defining and measuring progress. So as you are going and reflecting on your goals and the process so far, you want to make sure that you are revisiting the goals and the objectives, because again, those are the foundations for your strategies. What are you trying to achieve and how are you going to get there? What do you want people to do? How are you telling them what to do? And how are you going to make sure that you establish yourself as a trusted resource for the information? And so as you're thinking about this, you want to think about what can you measure that can demonstrate progress toward your goal and objectives. What can you measure with numbers? What qualitative data or information can help you understand the progress, or how can you make adjustments? What feedback or what tools can you use to get analytics or data, or how can you get actual feedback from your audience that can really indicate the success or need for improvement in your process? For example, if we're talking about the social media campaign or social media in general, we can use a lot of the data analytic tools that are available in the Meta Business Suite. even if you're doing email blasts, as I mentioned before, like in MailChimp, they have a lot of data analytics. So that's a way to really get that quantitative data. If you want to see numbers, if you want to see impressions, if you want to see a number of folks that you are reaching. But then there are also ways that you can get that qualitative data. How are you getting actual feedback from your audience? Are you using surveys? Is there a contact us form where people can drop questions on your website? Are you engaging with them on social media? Are you looking at the comments? Are people able to reach out to you? Are you getting direct messages on Facebook or Instagram? Or are people sending you emails? How are you collecting that data that both reflect numbers and how the impact that people are sharing with you, because both are real and both definitely can uh, indicate what your success is with your goals or your strategies. So really thinking about how to get both of those sets of data and how can you get it and how can you organize it? How can you view it? Once you get the raw data, once you get the comments, and once you get the numbers, how can you arrange it and how can you turn it into something meaningful that you can later apply or use to inform your process moving forward? So something that you can really reach for, especially if you have a website, is Google Analytics. It's a free tool, or it can be partially free or a low-cost tool that can collect and analyze the data and website traffic. I believe we use Google Analytics as well. As I mentioned, the Meta Business Suite. There is so much that you can use in there. In my time from like learning and doing social media, Meta Business Suite has so many tools and features that is very useful when it comes to data analytics, when it comes to audience insight. There are a lot of tools that you can access through that one little part of on Facebook or Instagram. So the Meta Business Suite is definitely a great resource. And also Tableau, that's another function that you can use to kind of turn that raw data into a chart or a dashboard into something more meaningful that people can really digest. You can use that really to arrange or collect your data and share it internally. Sure, if there are more tools and resources that you all have that you use too, feel free to drop those down in the chat. But these are just a few that we are familiar with.
And
yes.
Diamond, thank you for taking us through so much there. We have run out of time. And I'm going to very quickly ask that we just go 2 slides down. I just want to bring your attention to a few additional resources that we would love to point you toward. These are trainings, free trainings that are available on a number of different communication related topics. We collaborate with the Public Health Communications Collaborative on these trainings. And while we were hoping to have some time to get some feedback from you, I know that our CHTI colleagues do want to ask you to fill out a feedback form. So I think, Katie, maybe I'm turning it back over to you.
Yes, Victoria just dropped that in the chat. Karen and Diamond, thank you both so much for joining us today and sharing your wealth of knowledge. I certainly know I will be thinking about what calls to action I'm making to the youth that I work with and what things I want my audiences to know and believe and to do. Everyone, we do have 2 more trainings coming up in March. So if you liked this and you're interested in getting into other public health trainings, March 4th, we have a training on upstream approaches to public health. And March 12th, we have one focused on navigating local policy to advance community change. So wanted to shout out those 2 trainings. This one is recorded and will be posted in our library. So if you came in late or want to revisit any of this, please feel free to go back and watch the recording. And you're more than welcome to reach out to us if you have follow-up questions or things you feel like you need more direction on, because obviously we threw a lot at you today, resources, things to think about. We really hope you make use of the strategic planning tool that was shared. And we're just so grateful for your time this afternoon. So I think that's it from me. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and we hope to see you next month.
Thanks all.